Welcome back to Western Kabuki. My name is Caleb. As always, I am joined by my co-hosts. June, how are you doing?
I'm great. We're living in the era of Doge. Big time for Doge, big time for government shutdowns. It's wonderful. Oh God, I cannot wait every day just to wake up and see what horrors await us. I'm so excited. This is everything I've always wanted.
Alex? I don't have anything funny to riff on. Like, every time I look at my phone, I just feel worse. Everything is real bad.
Things are bad. Yeah, sorry to start this off with things fucking
I'll be real.
suck.
Like, every time you do something like that, I usually have a quick little retort. I'm tired. All my holiday stuff is already done. I just got home and I'm just, everything is bad. I wish I was funnier. Sorry. Alex, how you doing, pal?
Well, I am in a bathroom in Vancouver recording this.
Let's get the tour of the setup, please.
Okay, here we go. So there's that's a blanket I've hung on the shower door so that it's
very nifty.
Yeah,
beautiful.
I moved like a little stool from like a sitting area in here, so I'm right next to the toilet, and I've got my computer on a garbage can, and I'm just facing the corner like the end of the Blair Witch Project, trying to get as little reverberation going as possible.
Ladies and gentlemen, that's your Patreon dollars at work right there.
This is how hard it is to be a podcaster. This is what we go through. This is the torture.
Podcasting is art, and you know what? We suffer for this.
This week we're joined by a very special guest, Megan Romer, who is one of the, you said co-chairs is the title.
Yep.
Of National Democratic Socialists of America. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Thank you so much for joining us.
Yes.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, no, this is kind of like I'm sure pretty much everyone that's not like a psychopath is kind of in the position right now where it's like we wish the world wasn't going the way it was going. But what better time than to like recalibrate like strategy and kind of like look inward and be like, what are we doing? What should we do? Like, what can we change? What kind of new things should we do? And I people always have like complaints about DSA. I'm sure people in DSA are very acutely aware of like discourse about DSA. But I think, it's one of the bigger organizations, leftist organizations out there that exists that actually has some sort of intention of a plan. So I guess right away, DSA has kind of gotten in the spotlight since 2016, but more specifically, I think when like AOC kind of got involved with it, and the whole Bernie wave too. But that's what's been like the shift from like the 2020 to like 2024, like because obviously something needs to change with politics, as I kind of brought up right away. Like the richest man in the world is basically president right now and going to be controlling everything, and like this can't continue to happen. So I guess what I'm really curious about is like, what's the, like, I don't know if this is even
right on the top of the episode, June is asking you to solve politics.
Yeah. How do we solve politics? What's the DSA like mindset right now? What's the like leftist organizer mindset right now?
Yeah, I mean, it's a weird and hard time to be a socialist for sure. But it's also the time when it has become clear that like an actual organized, fierce fighting, strong leftist movement is as important as, because, liberal democracy will not save us, unfortunately.
Nope. If
it was going to, it would have. But all it does is sort of, I don't even want to say kick the can down the road. It like sort of trips on the can and the can rolls a little bit.
And then the can clearly has dementia and no one wants to talk about it.
Exactly.
And then they throw a party for the can.
From the can somehow. It's very uncomfortable.
Did you guys see the influencer party, by the way? Did you guys see the pictures from the influencer party, like the holiday Joe Biden's on the way out?
So it's like all of the sort of lefty Twitter people who get paid to post.
So if you, with Hunter Biden, the listener, have not heard this or seen this, first of all, I'm sorry for bringing this to your attention, but they did do, I guess, I don't know, they're putting Joe Biden on the ice floe kind of party and shoving him out to sea. I don't know what the point of this party was. But there's all the people that you yell at on Twitter were all there. You got JoJo from Jers, Moeller She Wrote, the Brooklyn Dad Defiant,
Olivia Juliana.
Just everybody
Game
was
Theory
there.
guy
Everyone's
there?
favorites.
And they all
He should have been.
took selfies with Hunter Biden.
Okay.
And posted selfies with Hunter Biden right after he was pardoned.
In their defense, if I was at a party with Hunter Biden, I would also like do that too. I would absolutely take a picture with Hunter Biden. So like that's to me
There
that's
would
the
be
least
some irony for that, right? Like,
Oh,
I don't know.
absolutely.
I would
No,
not
there
make-
is.
I would take a picture with him, but I would make him take his shirt off for a good reason, because Hunter Biden has this massive back tattoo of the Finger Lakes, which is where I'm from. It's this set of lakes in Central New York.
I didn't
And I don't
know
really
that.
know why. Like, I Googled at some point Hunter Biden Finger Lakes tattoo. It said something like, oh, we have fond family memories of there. But it kind of, because like I wanted a Finger Lakes tattoo, but now I can't have one because that's a Hunter Biden tattoo. It's kind of taken. But I would definitely do. I'd be like, shirt off, buddy. Come on. I know you want to.
Just another thing stolen from the Biden crime syndicate, the Finger Lakes tattoo.
I like so much matter about this than about almost any other Biden related thing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Also, did you guys read the report that I guess he was I wish I knew more about this. I'm sorry for him bringing this up, but he was with some woman and they smoked weed and whatever and listened to music, and then I guess they listened to Red Scare.
Oh my God, I did.
Yeah.
I did see that.
Honestly,
yeah.
like Hunter Biden listening to Red Scare is worse than the gun charge to me. I'll be
I agree.
That kind of ruins him for me. Like I was kind of on board with his whole deal. Red Scare, that's like just a step too far. Honestly, I agree. But yeah, no, like that party, to me, that party, whatever that going away, they're sending him off to sea. They're doing a Vikings funeral for Joe Biden. That party is indicative of like so much that's wrong with like the at least I'm hoping that's the previous era of the Democratic Party. I'm hoping very naively that they'll change, but like that's everything that's wrong with them, because like they invite these like influencers that are like handpicked by the party as like, oh, everyone likes these people, right? And it's like no one really does, except for people that will always vote for Democrats blindly, you know?
I mean, more than anything, you're never going to get any actual progress from a party that is as interested in the entrenched power structures as the Democratic Party is. Like, we're just never getting there.
Yeah, they're not going to get better, unfortunately. I mean, I say that with like very, very convinced authority at this point. I've wanted them to get better for my whole adult life. They don't and won't, because, you know, they are the party of liberal democracy, and liberal democracy is the ideology of capitalism. You know, it's free markets and freedom of whatever to, you know, make money and exploit people. It is different from conservatism. It's different from fascism, but it's still in service of capitalism, and it's not going to give us liberation. So it's our job.
Brought us, I would argue, I would argue it's brought us to this moment that we're living in right now too.
Absolutely.
I mean, like the whole Biden administration led us to this point, and their leadership and everything has kind of, I don't want to say ruined the country, because of course at the end of the day it is Republicans kind of doing what they're doing, but they led us down this path. The Democrats led us to this point where this was even possible.
Yeah, they didn't have to lose.
Yeah, no, which is horrific. I guess. Yeah.
But they didn't want to.
Yeah.
They didn't want to have to do what they would have to do to win, right? Like if they actually ran on things like ending the genocide, or if they actually ran on giving people health care, they would have to do it, and they don't want to do that because it's not what, you know, it's not their ideology. They want a healthcare market.
I guess from that and what you mentioned before about how you rightfully are convinced that the Democratic Party is not going to change, I guess what's the like, what's your mindset about where to go then? Because like acting just like, you know, I have kind of been at that point for a while. I'm a big skeptic of the Democratic Party, always have been ever since I was much younger than I am currently. Like, is the DSA like should there be an infiltration strategy, like take over the party, kind of like the left has kind of been hoping would happen with like the post-Bernie insurgents?
So that was the original. DSA was founded with that strategy. We call that a realignment strategy. And the idea was you take over the Democrats from the inside, fix them, move them to the left. DSA is largely, I don't want to say entirely, because I think we do still have some people who, in good faith, believe that that is the best path forward. But DSA's official line at this point is that we are moving toward building our own party. The debate is less about that we want to do that and more about how and what the timeline is. It also, we debate somewhat internally about, like, we haven't come to the full conclusion about what party means. Most of us, when we say it, are talking about the way sort of global left parties look. So sort of mass parties like PT or MOS. Some, people who grew up in the US and understand politics really in a US context really think of it as a ballot line. So, the Democratic Party isn't really a party, right? It's like a sort of weird network of consultants and donors. And like, you can't join the Democratic Party and fix it. Like, there's some Democratic clubs locally and depending on the state, whatever, but you can't just like, I'm a Democratic Party member and I'm going to fight for, like, that's not how it works. You vote in primaries. That's as much input as you get.
Yeah.
So we want to build a party that is actually democratic, like lowercase d democratic, where the members of the party get to help decide what the course is and what the, who the candidates are if we're going to run them, and how we build working class organization outside of the electoral sphere. So unions and tenant unions and other sorts of working class, structures that help people move in unison to demand, liberation from the capitalist class.
Okay, that's an interesting. I guess I didn't realize that was like the shifted DSA line away from the like infiltration, sort of like fix the party idea. I'm sure you guys remember, like right after I think the Democrats lost this recent election to Trump, Bernie Sanders sent out like a series of like press releases and like tweets saying I forget exactly what the statement was, but there was a lot of hope that he would kind of embrace or endorse a creation of a new party, because I think there is really like kind of a weakness with the Democratic Party where there's like people are genuinely like people are sick of this party, and I think there's such a good opening to who knows, maybe replace. It would be really hard to replace the Democratic Party, but like there's an opening for something, and I feel like it's just a matter of time until that something happens. So that's really interesting that the DSA is kind of having a dialogue about that. I had genuinely no clue.
Yeah, and the case that I make is that DSA is that something, and I read those emails from Bernie, and I was like, yeah, we're right here. We've been right here. We endorsed you. We like worked really hard for you. We were here. And so, there is often like this thing, like we need to invent a new thing. And it's like, okay, inventing a new thing is actually not easier than taking a thing that you have some infrastructure for and some resources in and building it into the thing you want it to be. Not saying that that's easy, right? It's not,
It's not easy. It's a way uphill battle, frankly, in this country with the amount of money behind all political parties that exist right now. I guess
Absolutely.
Both political parties that exist. Because that's always been like the problem with parties like the Green Party too, in my opinion, is that they run the presidential election, a failed candidate over and over and over. sorry, Jill Stein, but come on, 3 times now, 3 elections. What are you doing?
Yeah,
and that's all they do. They just throw out a presidential candidate and actually build something. Have grassroots movement.
And I think some people are frustrated that DSA, isn't like running 30 candidates for Senate every election. And we didn't have a presidential candidate this time around. But I think we don't want to do that sort of theory of change that the Green Party has. And I appreciate that they bring these, discussions to the forefront. I have no animosity toward the Green Party. I just don't think their theory of change is very effective. I just don't think it's ultimately like an advertising theory of change, right? You're like, if I put this out here and I say it loud enough, then everybody will hear me and they'll buy my thing. And I don't think that works. I think you actually have to build something. And
are you feeling cynical about electoral politics in general, or is it really specifically just that is not the strategy that the DSA is working with right now?
Well, I don't think I'm cynical about electoral politics at all. I think I think I'm cynical about the two-party system as it exists. And I think that I'm cynical about the idea that you can just shoot the moon like from nowhere. I think that right now, like building up municipal benches, which we are, we have New York City has a bunch of DSA people in city council. New York State Assembly has a bunch of DSA members. We have people in Portland. We have people we have city council people. We have them in places that you wouldn't expect. There's a city councilman in St. Petersburg, Florida. We've got one in Santa Fe, New Mexico. There are people building these benches. School boards, town councils, state assemblies. State assemblies are really important. A lot of power in those state houses, and intentionally gate kept, right? Like a lot of state house, the job, you have to be there for 100 days a year, and it only pays, $12,000 or something. So you can't be anything but some rich lawyer and do the job, or just, person with family money. So a teacher can't do the job because of the way the schedule is, or that kind of thing. So figuring out how to tackle those, and then using that to build that bench, and then building toward Congress, the Senate, and the presidency. I understand that that's slow, and I understand that it's not as fast as sort of sparky as you want it to be. Like, it's harder to get excited about a city council candidate, but I think that's where the power building comes from, for sure.
And the thing, with those that I've seen in the past is if it's super local like that, I can't think of an example off the top of my head just because I wasn't prepared to come up with one. But there's been so many instances of a left-leaning candidate leaning heavily into very localized issues for the constituency and doing very well because they actually they care about these local issues that people will get out for, because it's there's this pothole in the spot that everyone is running over and they have to get their tire fixed. It's super local stuff like that actually brings people out.
Totally. And one thing that's really funny, I had a conversation with our person who's a city council person in St. Pete. And he was talking about how it's really funny because he ran on the Democratic Party line, which most of our candidates do, where a independent line is not possible, or where it just makes sense to do it because a lot of people just vote based on the column, not further information. But he was talking about how the Republicans never know what to expect because sometimes he goes with them on stuff and they're like, well, but he's the most liberal, right? Because we're always the most liberal when we're socialists. He's the most liberal, and yet every now and again he's with us on something, and they can't figure him out. Even though, if I were to look at his voting record, I'd be like, yeah, no, this is completely consistent with socialist values. But yeah, it's a funny thing. They're not quite sure what to do with us. They definitely, don't necessarily expect the complexity of a socialist in office, but that's part of the fun of the game, right?
Yeah, it seems like no one really ever expects, even online, if I'm arguing, which I have a little bit today just because it's a very busy day, because we're looking at a potential, as of recording today, I don't know what's going to happen, but we're looking at a potential government shutdown, and I was saying these things and they're oh, just your Soros checks, you love your billionaires but you hate Musk, and it's not really, I don't know who you think I am. I don't like billionaires. Unlike you hate Soros, but you like Musk. I hate both of them, actually. Mm-hmm. They're both equally bad. Well, maybe not equally, but they're both bad.
They're both
none of these people ever know what to say.
Yeah, they're both close enough to the same
absolutely.
amount of bad that it's a statistical, whatever. We're in the margin of error for sheer amount of evil they've caused.
Yeah,
because you can't be a billionaire without exploiting God knows how many people. If I'm St. Peter and I'm making the tally at the gate, you probably exploited a lot of people, and you maybe supporting somebody, I don't know, dredging a really dirty beach somewhere does not make up for the amount of people you exploited.
So we have the strategy shift here, and what we had kind of talked about how we wanted to frame this episode was a couch to 5K, but for organizing. So say you are like a lot of people that we talk to in our community, just online or in person, whatever, that just feel paralyzed by how impossible it seems to do anything meaningful politically these days. What's the first step, and then how do we build on that until we're doing something meaningful?
Well, I will start with full bias and say that I think you should join your local DSA chapter. Because obviously it's like literally my job to tell people to do that.
Sure.
But I also think DSA is really well equipped to deal with people who have not organized before, and to sort of put you into a position where you're able to do some organizing and make some change. I would say also, like, if you're not unionized and you have the ability to be unionized, unionizing is a really, really good way to start building working class power, right? Or tenant union, so if you're maybe in a large building, maybe consider trying to figure out how to make a tenant union. There are resources out there. And, if you're like, maybe you just rent, one side of a duplex, you can also make a neighborhood tenant union where just you sign people up in your neighborhood and you fight as tenants for things like not just your housing, but also like making the school better, because since you're not a homeowner, you don't always get the same amount of say so. But if you're a tenant union and you're organized, you can, demand those kinds of things. You can demand that pothole be fixed and just confuse the conservatives because you weird commies showed up and you're like, yeah, no, actually, we don't want our axles to bend either. And there you go. But yeah, so join something. I would argue that it should be something that has a theory of change that involves like mass movement, worker power, and then dig into some sort of project. And that sounds kind of glib. Like, how do I dig into a project? But odds are good.
Project and how?
Yeah.
I guess I could give an example. I haven't been active in the last year, sadly, just because I've been very busy. But I used to live much closer than I currently do to Milwaukee, and the Milwaukee DSA chapter took this very local issue of the energy company in that area in like eastern Wisconsin, the eastern, like on Lake Michigan, basically north to south, is this company called We Energies. And the Milwaukee DSA put together an organizing force and got like actually a lot of local people, local organizers not even associated with the DSA, to try to not nationalize. I guess, what would that be? I guess it would be nationalized for the city, specifically.
You make it public. It's a public power. Yeah.
Public ownership of energy of the city. So like they would basically, I forget the exact specifics of that whole organizing. It was called the project that they were running, and I think still are. It was called Power to the People, and yeah, they wanted to make energy in the city public, and they had an example of some. Because people at this meeting, I went to the kickoff meeting for this whole thing. There was maybe close to 120 people in this like really tiny church. I don't know if it was a church. I can't remember. Just like this community building. And people were like, so how is this going to be done? How are we going to make energy public for the city? And they, the organizer, one of the DSA local chapter heads pointed out, there was like in Iowa, there was an example of a city doing exactly what they had proposed, and they were working off of that framework to make it public. So like, I guess that's an example of get involved in something. Again, like I said, I haven't been active up there in a little bit. I don't know if that Power to the People project is still going. If you are in the Milwaukee area, highly recommend that, because I went to that kickoff meeting, like I said, and there was a lot of just like local community people, not even people involved with DSA, that came and spoke about how in the winter their power gets shut off and they're freezing. They have no heat. And it's like some of these issues are really, really like you can do a lot of good for people if you get involved in these sort of smaller scale. But for a lot of people, it's really not that small scale,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And one thing that I really liked that they did with that specific campaign is they really worked hard to make sure that everything was bilingual. So they were holding their meetings with a translator. All their materials were bilingual. So they were making sure they weren't just excluding people, which is, it's not just morally good, but it's actually strategically good, right? If your working class is significantly a Hispanophone, you want to make sure that you have your materials in Spanish. So yeah,
Absolutely. No, I mean, it's especially good for Milwaukee because I mean, it's no secret that Milwaukee's, I mean, it's a very diverse city, but it's also one of the most heavily segregated cities in the country still, just due to like redlining policy in the past. So getting like outreach like that is great because it can bring all sorts of different people, which it did. There was a lot of, for DSA, the stereotype is like, oh, it's white young people, but there was old black people, Hispanic people, young people too. Like there was so many different types of people at this event that it was just the kickoff. It was the first event for this thing, which was really cool to see.
Yeah, for sure. And so what's cool about campaigns like that is not only do you potentially win something that is like beneficial to the, the working class where you live, where people are not freezing to death, which is a nice thing to not die in the house
yeah,
at night.
It's kind of huge. Yeah,
it's like kind of a big deal. But you're also building a structure, right? You have these lists with a bunch of phone numbers on them, and you have a bunch of people's names, and you can like, okay, so now we won this power campaign and now we want to run 3 people for city council. Well, look, we have this list of people who knocked doors for this thing. Maybe they'll knock doors for that thing. We're going to, talk to them right away. And so then you kind of build these things, or you say like, okay, there's this new warehouse coming and we want to unionize it. Let's call through our list and see if anybody wants to salt the warehouse. Like anybody looking for a job, we're going to send you in. We're going to send in 30 people in this warehouse of, with a staff of 1,000, and we're going to see if we can unionize it. And so anything where you're kind of building these lists and connecting people in a way that they are able to feel the power of like moving together in unison as a community, just builds you that much closer to the next step. And if we can do that everywhere, we can actually win.
For sure.
I'm curious. I know that right now, I speak for myself and probably a lot of other people. They're feeling, I would say, kind of demoralized. And I'm wondering if you have any advice to find that motivation beyond like, suck it up and deal. Like, I'm just wondering, like, what your experience has been after this election, where it feels like, I mean, it's felt like this for a long time, but it really crystallized in my head that just like, we have one party that abjectly hates everyone I care about, and then one party that's like indifferent to dislikes everyone I care about. And I'm just like, these are the two parties that are battling for power, and I feel very much out in the cold. So in that situation, like, how do you feel more empowered, and like, what is it about organization that makes you feel more empowered?
Yeah, so I, spent most of my adult life as a liberal, as like a kind of Jon Stewart lib. I'm 41, so that's for that context. And I was oh God, okay, I would have been 36 or 7 when I started organizing. So I'd done some other stuff. I'd done like gun advocacy and like kind of classic lib mom things, but started organizing as a socialist and like getting socialism. And it just organizing and actually fighting for things for the community and like actually winning and seeing what it means to have the power of like a movement and not just 3 people with a very convincing op-ed. Which it is fun. It's fun to drop a banger in the op-eds, but actually getting together with people and winning something is the great motivator. That doesn't mean that I don't like feel bad right now. I do and have. Some of it is just suck it up. I like to remind myself, like, one of my grandmothers worked in a factory making chains, and she pushed a button on a machine that made lawnmower chains for like 40 years. The other one worked in a factory that made typewriters, and she pushed a button on a machine that made typewriters for like 40 years. And I have been given an opportunity to do a lot more and travel and see the world, and my life is not so bad, and I can fight for people who maybe are still pushing a fucking button on a chain making machine, and alongside them to fight for the things that we both and all deserve. And some of it is just I don't know. I don't love like this idea of self-care, because I think it's really important to do community care, right? Like, I think like, okay, take a bath. Like, okay, that's not gonna fix it. But I think that collective.
You should still take a bath, though, if you're listening.
Yeah, no, you definitely.
Not to get all Jordan Peterson on our audience, but you guys do have to take a bath and clean your room. I'm sorry.
There are socialist stereotypes that we do not want to be meeting. Like, please, I'm simply begging you, bathe. But yeah, take a bath, but also like, you know, do dumb stuff with your friends, like go, you know, play tabletop games or get out your ukuleles and like strum and sing awkward, you know, 2000 songs together. You got to kind of take care of each other and find joy in each other. And I know that's like, people are like, yeah, but I'm an introvert. I'm like, all right, well then find joy with like just one or two other people, or find joy in video games by yourself, but you're also maybe communicating with somebody else. But I mean, I get it. I don't want to be around everybody all the time either, but you know, checking in on each other, making sure each other are okay. Like maybe don't talk to each other, just drop cookies on each other's porches. That's fine too. But I think remembering that we are part of this thing is really helpful. And yeah.
I know. I think that is really important, because I feel like when you touched on like, oh, self-care, I think the reason why like that like very lib mindset is like not useful particularly is it's very individualistic, which is like the opposite of what we should be doing. And it's what like conservatives want us to probably be doing. And it's like probably what the Democratic Party wants us also to be doing. But like doing, yeah, like you said, like community, like caring for people in your community, people around you, your neighbors, whoever, can help build a lot more anything, like solidarity. And like it could build something just because you're caring for each other and like actually helping each other out and talking to each other. I think that's so much more valuable than taking a bath.
Yeah. And, you know, I mean, we, as leftists, we talk a lot about mutual aid versus charity and whatever, but like, seriously, like go do a shift at the soup kitchen. You'll feel better. You will, you know, is it perfect politically? Whatever. Who cares? You did something and you're going to actually feel better. I promise. Go shovel the old lady down the street's sidewalk because it's got snow on it. Like just do something. It doesn't really matter what. It's very important to, I don't want to say like it doesn't matter what you do at all ever, but I think occasionally sometimes you just got to snap yourself out of it by physically or, you know, actively in some way making some small change for somebody else in your community.
Absolutely. Speaking on, I think someone mentioned strikes before, or like labor organizing. I think just today, 10 Amazon warehouses are on strike, and I believe just 30 minutes before starting recording, a lot of either the entire Starbucks company or just a lot of them, like all the Starbucks unions, announced that they're on strike now too, which is like huge. This is like a really bizarrely massive moment, like two pretty major companies going on strike all at the same time.
Right before the
I guess my question is, oh God, that's going to be kind of amazing. Actually,
imagine all the gingerbread lattes that people are going to be sitting there and waiting for that won't come.
Yeah, no, there's going to be such a treat-literate like revolution. All the suburbanites are going to be driving their Cybertrucks and like into Starbucks to try to get their lattes.
People keep throwing empty cups in the back because they think it's a monster.
Yeah. I guess so. Obviously, labor is really important. What's like, so for someone, I'm not in the Starbucks union. I'm not in an Amazon union. What is something that just like anyone can do to support these unions? Obviously, do not break the picket line. Do not go to these places. But there's got to be more than just not going to these places, right?
Yeah. So not only don't break the picket line, but go join the picket line. It's actually really fun. Like that is a fun way and a way that like a sort of soul regenerating way to spend an afternoon. Just go like shout at a boss. It doesn't even have to be your boss. And those picket lines, you know, they need people. They need extra bodies. The more people on the picket line, the more powerful it is. So go bring snacks and march, or just stand there and just be moral support. That's really huge. I think I suspect, I have not looked, but I suspect there are strike funds So if you maybe have cash but no time, strike funds are always good. If they don't have strike funds right now set up, somebody does, I promise. And that's a good way to contribute also.
For sure. No, that's something I've like tried to do a little bit, like go to them if I have time, or strike funds. But you're so right about like going to these events, like just does rejuvenate your soul. Not to go back in time a little bit and like, because it's not over yet. Of course, the genocide in Israel and Palestine, perpetrated by Israel, is not done yet. They're still doing that. But I think it was this last summer, that when the campus strikes were really in full force, I again went to the YDSA chapter in Milwaukee. They set up an encampment at whatever the university is. I cannot remember the name of it. But going to that encampment and just seeing the organizational efforts of these students at the college with the YDSA in particular. The YDSA, from what I can gather, is a lot more radical and even more active in public than like main DSA. I don't mean to throw shade on main DSA, but from what I gather, YDSA is like really like the like real radical in like a really good way. And they were like in Milwaukee, they were working with a local church who was like basically cooking for this encampment. This church across the street was like, they brought over food, they brought over tables for like barriers. Like they kind of organized the whole community in like a really amazing way. And just going there to be able to see that was kind of like mind blowing. It was really impressive how organized they could be and were.
Yeah, they are incredibly amazing. And also it was very brave. And a lot of them are suffering very serious repercussions. The closest encampment to me is Cornell YDSA. And I did go the first morning they opened up, and I showed up with snacks, as moms of teenagers do. And I brought my teenager. He was, he just turned 14. And I was like, well, let's go see what cool kids do. And he had fun. And so we went, brought snacks. And I, told every mom I know, like, show up with snacks and your teenagers. Like, come on. That's like, you gotta be a soccer mom. You show up at those encampments and use that minivan for good. Come on. But a lot of those kids got not just suspended from Cornell, but their persona non grata on Cornell campus, which Ithaca being what it is, which is so much Cornell, they can't really be in Ithaca. So they like had to leave. I know one of their labor chairs is now, doing some work in Buffalo for like a couple years before he can start school again. And that is incredibly brave to be bold enough to put off your education, to put off, that's when you're 18, like that's kind of, you're the windshield in front of you. It's just not very far, right? Like, and they were like, we're just going to do it
Most teenagers
anyway.
are selfish assholes. Let's be real. That's pretty brave, I think.
Yeah,
absolutely.
No, it's amazing. So I hesitate to say that I'm incredibly proud because it makes me sound patronizing, but I am. I'm always proud of the comrades when they're out there fighting the good fight. So yeah, support your YDSA. And if you don't have one, YDSA is always expanding to new campuses. So if you are a DSA member, you don't have a YDSA at your local campus, reach out to your field organizer and they'll help you see if you can put one together.
Yeah, no, people in their early 20s, very ready to be very radical, is what I have gathered. And like, I don't know, I was early 20s. I was and still am, I would say, equally as radical as I was then. So there's that just potential. There's such a the Democrats, not to go back to the Democrats, but the Democratic Party has such an underestimation of where young people are, and it always continues. It's going to keep biting them in the ass because they don't understand. They bring these like youth organizers into the party. I don't want to name names. I'm sure anyone listening or any of us here right now can name any of these people, some of them probably at that Joe Biden Viking funeral party. So they have these people, but they don't actually represent what young people want, or the energy that young people have in politics. It's a shame that they're throwing so much energy to the wayside when there's so much potential there.
Yeah, and I think specifically, like, I don't only want to shout out boomers, but Gen X too. Like, they don't get that these kids are growing up with zero hope, right? These kids who were born after 9/11, the world has never been good. I turned 18 5 days before 9/11, 2001. So I had like 5 days of adult life before the bad happened. This is like my villain origin story, right? So, but anyway, so it's been like my whole adult life. It's been like, oh, are things ever going to get good again? And so now, 20 couple years down the road, my answer is no, right? Like, no, they're not going to get better again. That's not the case. But these kids have never seen it anywhere near hopeful. It's just been bad. The climate is collapsing. The world, we've got a couple Cold Wars going on and a couple hot ones going on and have their entire life. It's the economy. It's like, I don't know. Has the minimum wage been raised in their lifetime? I'm not even sure. But the price of groceries sure has gone up. So I don't.
The rent is doubled in their lifetime.
Yeah, but there's like a generation that doesn't get. They're like, why are they so angry? It's because they know their life is never going to be good. That's a pretty good reason to be angry, and y'all did it. So, yeah.
Yeah, no, it's a shame. It's a shame.
Yeah.
That's why I do think there needs to be DSA, there needs to be outside organization, any sort of pressure, really. Because I don't think they're ever going to change unless they're basically on their knees begging for this energy to kind of come in and save them.
It has to be unbearable for them. I mean, it has to be. That's the only way. The only way to do it is to make it so that the people who are the rich and powerful their life becomes unbearable. They can't do all the things that are fun and good about being rich and powerful. We got to make them understand what it means to not be able to pay your rent.
I'm happy to move toward that goal. That sounds great. I love that.
Absolutely. And it's like so easy to message. I feel like I don't know if you guys saw or even know who Theo Von is.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. He had
friend of the show.
Yeah, great guy. But he had Timothy Chalamet on his show very recently, talking about the Bob Dylan movie. What was that?
Another friend of the show. Sorry.
He's. We're in talks with him right now. But no, not really. I don't, or at least not that I'm aware of. Maybe we are.
I'll call him.
Yeah. Okay. Perfect. So we'll be in talks with him. But he was on Theo Von, which Theo Von, traditional dumb guy type podcaster, like Joe Rogan sphere, kind of just like perfect type of show for just like dumb guys. But Timothy Chalamet was on this show talking about like Bernie Sanders and like leftist like topics and things that like the left cares about and like young people cares about. And Theo Von was like, oh yeah, like he was like very open to what he was saying. And I think he even called Bernie Sanders like a folk hero or something. And it's like, it's so like, I don't know what we have to like, I don't know how much more we can show the Democratic Party that like these like dumb guys out there, these like people that don't really have specific ideologies, just kind of want something new from the left or the Democratic Party. And you just kind of have to, all it starts with is the very basic having to say the Democratic Party like kind of sucks, but you can't do that and be in the Democratic Party.
Right. Yeah. And anybody who's done like any amount of canvassing or even phone banking, people have absolutely incoherent, chaotic politics. Like 95% of people's politics make no sense at all. Anybody who's like ridden in a taxi or a Lyft or an Uber has like, are y'all conversing with your drivers? I can't help it because I have to talk to everybody all the time. But like, I was in a cab in Dallas and the guy was like, yeah, it's just so I'm so upset about Trump winning. And I just, he's going to defund the schools and then he's probably going to defund the police. And then I was like, whoa, hold on. Because one of those things is cool. But like that's a normal set of politics. Like that is typical bog standard American politics. And
that's the thing is like, these like the median voter does not know what they're talking about half the time. There'll be in similar polls people being polled about like, oh, Kamala Harris is further left than Bernie Sanders. But like then they'll say, so they think Kamala Harris is like very far left compared to him. But then they'll be like, oh, I'm conservative. But they like Bernie Sanders more. And it's like, what are you talking about? What do you mean you're moderate, but think Bernie Sanders is more moderate and Kamala Harris? Like there is no, whenever like liberals are like, see, look at this poll. People say they're moderates. And it's like in the same poll, they think Kamala Harris is a communist and Bernie Sanders is a moderate. Like people in this country don't operate in terms of specific set out, well thought out ideologies. People operate in a way where they like the sound of something. That is genuinely what people operate in. If they like the sound of something, they're like, yeah.
And I think that people know that stuff's pretty bad and it's not working. And of course there are like these sort of entrenched, like, we have terrible racism in this country that is part of the capitalist system that is just going to always, no, it's not always, because we're going to fix it. But it is a major factor in these decisions people make. But ultimately, most people are like, yeah, stuff's really bad. I literally cannot make sense of why, because I don't have a coherent ideology, but somebody should change something. And so Donald Trump shows up and he's like, I'm going to change stuff. And they're like, all right, let's give it a shot. And yeah, I mean, I think there probably is a subsection of people who are just absolute like fascist bigots who, I don't want to say they can't be helped, but they're not the target market for getting a majority. But all that mushy middle, those people are all just in need of, socialist Jesus.
Absolutely.
Okay, but probably not Jesus, but it's socialist Jesus.
I knew what you
Karl
meant.
Marx.
A symbolic Jesus. A symbolic Karl Marx.
Exactly.
Amazing.
As we kind of wrap this up, do we have any closing thoughts, any words of optimism, wisdom to our listeners, Megan?
Yeah, I mean, it feels bad. I get it. I also feel bad. I'm with you. But it has never been more important to get in the fight, because now is the time. The fight is easiest when the cracks appear in the foundation, and the cracks are there, the contradictions are there, and it's our job to get organized and get in there and blast it wide open. So we need you. We need people. We need whatever skills you have. We need whatever background you have, whatever horrifying experiences with capitalism you have, because I bet you would have a bunch.
Yeah, I went to business school. I'm not sure how I can help.
It is, sometimes you'll be sitting there with somebody else and you start like listing off your radicalizing events, and all you can think about is like why didn't I radicalize way sooner? Like, why was I not actually born radicalized? Because so many events in my life have been horrifying and somebody else's fault because they wanted to make money. and we don't have to live like that. So, but we have to collectively act. We're not just going to convince people by having the right ideas and posting them online. I'm sorry. I wish that were the answer. It is not, unfortunately, the answer. We have to be in some sort of formation with each other where we're moving in that direction. So get in it. Yeah, we're here for each other. That's all we got. We will win. I do believe it.
I do too, despite where we're at right now. I'm optimistic to a fault, even when things are very bad. So I do agree. I think eventually, goddamn, I think we will win.
Yeah. Okay. Let's bring this one home. Megan, is there anything you'd like to plug? Let's plug the DSA first, and then anything else.
Yeah. Join DSA if you're not already a member. DSAUSA.org/join. It's easy to remember because it's the Democratic Socialists of America of the United States of America, as my 14-year-old likes to point out. DSAUSA.org. Whatever, I guess that was the website that was available back when they built it. So DSAUSA.org. Or find your local DSA chapter and go just check out a meeting, check out an action, check out a rally. And yeah, definitely if you're anywhere near any of these Amazon the Teamsters strikes, on the Amazon warehouses or the Starbucks strikes, get out there. I promise those are some fun picket lines right now. I saw a lot of pictures of them today, and they looked like they were having a good time. There's not one near me, but I might have to gas up the minivan and go find one tomorrow. So
Amazing.
All right. Thank you so much, Megan.
Yeah, thank you.
thanks
Thank you for coming
having me.
on.
All right.
This was a blast.
Absolutely. And we